Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Behind me, Grenfell Tower. It's 24 stories, now just a charred shell. Once home to hundreds of people, today it's an ugly reminder of a tragedy that many people around here consider could have been avoided. The scale of that tragedy is becoming much clearer. 17 people are now confirmed dead, but the police believe the final figure will be higher. The first victim has been named by friends and family as Mohammed al-Hajali, a Syrian refugee who came to the country in 2014. This afternoon, Theresa May has announced a public inquiry. It follows growing anger among residents here. The Queen has sent a message of sympathy. Our first report on this devastating tower block fire is from our home editor, Mark Easton.
Slowly, inch by painstaking inch, fire officers continue their grim and dangerous work. Amid the soot-blackened shell of what was once home to hundreds are some who didn't make it out. Exactly how many, we don't know. But the emergency services are warning the scale of this tragedy is yet to become clear.
Sadly, I can confirm that the number of people that have died is now 17. We do believe that that number will sadly increase. There are 37 people receiving treatment, of which 17 are still in critical care.
The agony of a wounded neighbourhood is written on a wall, the desperation of people searching for family and friends, prayers and solace from near and far. For the last 2 days, Jason Garcia's been searching for his 12-year-old cousin, Jessica Urbano.
We feel helpless, really. All we're hoping is that through putting up posters, sharing her image on social media and talking to people like yourself, that maybe someone with information will get in touch with us.
Syrian refugee Mohammed al-Hajali, an engineering student seeking a better life in Britain, was named by his family today as having died in the fire. People crave answers, but complain of delays and evasion.
At the moment we're grieving, but there's a public anger underneath, and we do want to see someone held accountable for this.
The love and generosity that's poured into North Kensington in the last couple of days cannot make up for the numbing sense of loss. The Prime Minister made a private visit to the scene today, speaking to emergency workers before announcing there will be a full public inquiry into what went wrong.
When I spoke to the emergency services, they told me that this fire, the way this fire progressed, how it took hold of this building, was rapid, it was ferocious, and it was unexpected.
We have to get to the bottom of this. The truth has got to come out, and it will.
The Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn also went to North Kensington, insisting he would speak up for the community. Shock and grief are being joined by outrage and anger. The questions are raining down, rather like the charred lumps of cladding, which locals are holding up as possible evidence that people were housed in a preventable death trap. This tower block fire looks just like North Kensington.
They came in and said, get out, evacuate now.
But it was 3 years ago in Melbourne, Australia. And the similarities don't stop there.
Those of us that have been around for 30 years or more have never seen a fire develop in this way.
In my 29 years in the London Fire Brigade, I have never seen a fire of this nature, and I have seen many high-rise fires.
We never expected to see a high-rise fire that would spread so quickly from the 8th floor to the 21st floor.
In London, the fire raced from the ground to the 24th floor in less than half an hour. Attention in Australia focused on the building's aluminium cladding, an inquiry blaming cheaper plastic fibre-backed cladding rather than mineral fibre-backed. The same distinctions being made about Grenfell Tower, although the authorities insist building regulations were followed. London Mayor Sadiq Khan was heckled by a small group of people on a visit to Grenfell Tower today.
Tell me what he's going to say. I want to hear this rubbish.
Feelings are running high.
Understandably, the residents are very angry and concerned and have genuine questions that demand answers. And so, whereas
someone needs to be held accountable.
Well, of course,
These deaths could have been prevented.
The concerns are not just about what went wrong in North Kensington. They're also about what could go wrong in thousands of tower blocks across Britain. Residents at Trellick Tower, who can see Grenfell Tower from their balconies, now have a constant and disturbing reminder of the risks of high-rise living. Mark Easton, BBC News, North Kensington.
It's coming up to 48 hours since the fire began in Grenfell Tower, and still there is no real sense of exactly how many people might have fallen victim to the inferno. In fact, in the last hour, police say they may never be able to identify all those who died. If you walk around the streets here or visit the temporary shelters, you will see handwritten posters listing the names of loved ones that have not yet been found. Our special correspondent Lucy Manning reports now on two families' desperate search for relatives. And just a warning, you may find some of the details distressing.
Mohammed Hakim fears he's lost everyone. His mother, father, two brothers and sister. All his extended family supporting him now rushed to the fire when the calls of panic came.
I spoke to her and the very last few words that she said to me was, "Please forgive me if I've said anything to upset you or hurt you. I don't think we're going to make it out of the building."
They were supposed to be celebrating next month. His sister Husna was getting married, but the entire Mia family were trapped on the 17th floor.
And they were reciting like du'as from the Quran, and it was just heartbreaking, and then it just cut out. And then I rang Husna. She was like, "Oh, we're not going to make it, we can't make it, we can see flames under the door. I can see flames under the door." And I kept saying, try and put things under the door to stop the smoke coming in and get low as you can and open the windows. Someone's going to come, call the fire brigade, do something. And then she stopped talking. And all I could hear was this crackling noise in the background because the phone was still on, but she wasn't saying anything. And not knowing is killing me. I really need to find out where they are.
The family stood helpless outside, unable to rescue them.
This is the worst thing I will remember in my life. I saw my uncle from the 17th floor. He opened the window and he kept shouting, "Please help us, get us out." And he was saying Allah's name and all this. And I kept looking at his helpless.
Mohammed, it must be extremely difficult just not knowing.
Not losing one member of my family, but losing all five, the whole entire family. I don't have my parents anymore, and you only get one set of parents in this world, and I had 3 siblings. They're all gone in the space of a couple of hours after leaving their house. They're all gone. And no one wants to give us any information about where their whereabouts are, if they're still within the building or not.
They still have hope, but feel bereft of help. Adele Chowie is another relative deep in grief and frustration. Baby Lena Belkadi, just 6 months old, is missing. Along with her mum Farah and her dad Omar. They eventually found 2 of the baby's sisters in hospital.
We found one of the children there, the younger, and my brother's looking around and he's staring at another bed and asks Farah's older sister to have a look, and Farah's older sister says that's the other child, that's the older one, and they were beds apart and no one in authority was making any effort to identify them.
So you've had to do this all yourself?
We've had to do it ourselves.
So many families here are looking, hoping, dreading the news that may come. Lucy Manning, BBC News, West London.
Now, it's something we have become all too familiar with in the last few weeks, the list of those who are still unaccounted for. This is a wretched time for families and friends, hoping for the best but fearing the worst. Our correspondent Fergus Walsh reports now on those still missing from the Grenfell Tower fire.
Hour by hour, the roll call of the missing lengthens. Friends and relatives, desperate for information, have posted photos and messages on social media. Khadija Say is a 24-year-old photographer whose work is on show at the Venice Biennale. She lived on the 20th floor with her mother, Mary Mendy. Both are missing. Fatima, Myrna and 3-year-old Zainab Shuker also lived on the 20th floor of Grenfell Tower with their parents and grandmother. All 6 are missing. Jessica Urbano is 12. She too lived on the 20th floor. Her father was visiting friends lower down and couldn't get back when the fire started.
She was out of the flat at 1:30. She was already making her way down with some people, and her phone cut off.
Jessica's a 12-year-old vibrant young girl who's going to be turning 13 next month. She's a lovely little girl with a bubbly personality, and we're just worried and concerned about her. We just want her home. We want her back now.
Gloria Trevisan, an architect, and her partner Marco Cottardi are from Italy. They'd only recently moved into the 23rd floor. They were unable to get out and called their relatives around 4 a.m. to say smoke was rising. A family lawyer said there was no hope of finding them alive. More names, more faces, possibly dozens more, are still to come. Behind every picture, there is a family, friends and loved ones, searching, hoping, and in some cases already grieving.
Fergus Walsh there reporting on those still unaccounted for. We can go over to Scotland Yard now and talk to our correspondent Daniel Sanford. Daniel, I gather the police have been giving a briefing, giving you an update on the investigation.
Yes, George, and they're warning that this is going to be a very, very long and difficult process. That the building of Grenfell Tower is still so dangerous that fire officers and police officers simply can't get into some parts of the building to find out how many bodies are there. They have managed to recover 6 bodies to the mortuary, but 11 bodies that they found are still in the building, and they believe that the number of bodies in the building is going to be much higher than that, significantly higher. Senior detectives here this evening saying that they hope that the final death toll won't reach triple figures. And then the process of identifying the people is going to be very, very difficult as well because of the damage to some of the bodies from the fire. Detectives are going to be relying on dental records, but many of the people who lived in Grenfell Tower are recent immigrants, so they may not have been to the dentist in this country, so that's not going to be easy. Detectives are worried they may never identify some of the victims who died in the fire. They've taken 5,000 calls to the Casualty Bureau. 200 officers from 8 different forces are now working through that information, calling people back to check if anything has changed, to check for updates. But detectives are warning that it's going to take weeks, if not longer, to work out exactly who has died in this fire.
Daniel, thank you very much. Well, if you're one of those still looking for information, there's an emergency number, and that's for anyone concerned about their loved ones. It's the Police Casualty Bureau, and they can be reached on 0800 0961 233. That's 0800 0961 233. And I just want to show you these pictures. This is what we've been told is a fire service drone, and it's been running up and down the facade of Grenfell Tower. And remember, right now, what the fire service specialists are trying to do is to establish just how safe this building is for the fire crews to then go in and begin their recovery operations. So that's been happening while you've been watching those reports from Laura and listening to Laura. We've seen that drone literally quite systematically going from window to window and just checking out. Now, within hours of the fire breaking out, the streets around here were filled with tables covered in food, water and clothes for those that have lost absolutely everything. In fact, there have been so many offers that some temporary shelters have had to turn away donations. Our correspondent Elaine Dunkley is at the Latimer Road Community Centre in West London. Elaine.
Generosity is keeping this community together, and still more things are arriving. Last night and today there was a constant stream of people donating food, clothing and offering their time. And right now there are people packing boxes and more things are still arriving. The message for now is no more perishable foods, but charities in this area desperately need vans and storage. It's residents in this community who have taken such an active role in trying to organise the sheer volume of goods. but there has been criticism that the council could do more to coordinate collections. From all over the country, donations are arriving, boxes of food and clothing. This is the Al-Manar Mosque. Many have not slept since the fire destroyed homes.
We're working under an umbrella of humanity, which is absolutely amazing, and saying that communities do come together. And there were Muslim people donating to churches, and I was one of them. There were Christian people donating to, mosques, because knowing whatever is easier and closer. It's just a network of not races, not colours, and not anything, just us being humans.
Many people felt helpless as they watched the tower block on fire. Donating food and clothes is helping this community heal.
I'm from New York, and I lived in New York when the towers came down, and it was very reminiscent of that. And just generally, you want to help, you want to do whatever you can.
But as well as generosity, there is frustration that food and clothes are being left on the street.
We're trying to create a central base here.
Niles is a local resident. He's organised a sorting facility to take collections.
We don't want any bags left on the street that's been sent from people's hearts. I don't think people need to send so much stuff anymore, but people need to support the community in whatever capacity that they have. In the midst of this horror and destruction is a bit of beauty, you know? There's a bit of upliftment, there's a bit of seeing that we can, we have a lot of resources, human resources.
Please stop, just stop. Clothes are going here, food only is going here.
As more boxes arrive, those who are trying to help are feeling overwhelmed and say the council could do more to organise collections, volunteers and storage.
It's been a united front here, but I've got to say that the council sort of dragged their feet a lot, and they should have done a lot more. We're just common folk that's come to help, and there hasn't been any contingency plans, there hasn't been any strategies.
I've got a week off, and I'll just give my time to do what needs doing. But there are so many people here, just waiting for someone to tell me what to do.
The local authority says it is trying to manage donations, but says the priority is finding homes for vulnerable families. How do you respond to the criticism from people around here that the council hasn't done enough to help?
Well, I'm very sorry that there is that criticism, because in fact we were very quick to set up 3 emergency centres around the tower. They are staffed by council staff who have expertise in looking after younger people, older people with particular needs, disabled people.
Tonight, most residents are in temporary accommodation. For now, there are enough provisions. What people need is a roof over their heads. And as well as donations, of course, people have been offering emotional support. And what we can see here is a wall of tributes, people from all faiths, all backgrounds, coming together just to have a moment, to think about the people who live in this community and the people who are all trying to work so hard together to stay strong. We've seen so many flowers, and actually as the day has gone on, they've had to put more boards up so more people can leave messages of thought, sentiment and prayer. For this community, it really is a very, very difficult time, and people are doing so much they can just to keep everyone together and just to offer thoughts and prayers.
Elaine, thank you very much. Well, amidst the devastation, stories of extraordinary bravery are emerging. More than 200 firefighters tackled this blaze yesterday, entering the building when it was still burning as they tried to help those who were trapped. And their work isn't over. They're now involved in the recovery operation. Our correspondent Sarah Campbell reports on the firefighters and the impact this fire has had on them.
Hero! This guy, look at that, hero!
It's impossible to imagine how anyone would willingly run into this. But that's exactly what more than 200 firefighters did.
The main thing with this building on the night was the speed the fire moved from the bottom up to the top, and the thick black smoke that filled the air, that filled the building. They're real challenges for us. We've also got people, quite rightly, trying to get out of the building quickly as we're trying to get in.
Have you ever had to or seen a fire like it?
I've never seen a fire on this scale in my whole career. No, I've seen lots of fires in the London Fire Brigade, but nothing on this scale.
Exhausted having spent hours tackling a fire which has been described as unprecedented in its scale, and the work is far from over. Now comes the task of making the building safe enough to allow a thorough search and recovery.
You've had a chance to speak to some of those involved. How are they doing, if not physically, mentally?
I've spoken to quite a few people. They're okay. I think the main thing is that they're tired, but they are so keen to ensure that we complete the job. You know, they were on duty again. A lot of them were on duty last night. Some will be on duty again tonight, and they want to come back. They want to come back and assist.
Thankfully, only a handful of firefighters received minor injuries. The mental scars from what they saw and heard may take much longer to heal.
People have coping mechanisms in all sorts of ways, and you know, the most obvious one is the support of your colleagues who've been through similar experiences. But clearly, the scale of this and the sorts of horrors that people have seen means that they will need to be watched, and they'll need to be supported, and that will need professional support.
There is anger here, with many local people feeling let down by the authorities, but there's thanks too for those willing to put their lives on the line to save others.
Heroes, heroes. I mean, the heroes? They went in to try to save people in that. Everyone, they're heroes.
Sarah Campbell there reporting on the firefighters. Now, the BBC's Ben Brown has been covering this over the last 2 days. Ben, as I say, you've been here all this time. How has this story changed while you've been here?
Well, George, I think we've seen more and more of this generosity of spirit, people donating anything they have to help the homeless. But what we've seen today perhaps is rising anger, a real raw anger, which perhaps wasn't there yesterday because there was so much shock. But now we've seen, for example, the Mayor of London came here, Sadiq Khan. There was heckling. There were people saying, we want answers, we want them now. He was talking about the inquiry, but they said, we want answers right now. So he was getting quite a rough ride. Almost anyone in authority is being challenged by residents here. And also, I've been talking to people from other tower blocks nearby. They are incredibly angry, but they're also fearful. They're saying, is our block safe? Are our homes safe? And then the distress that you see, really, when you talk to people who've lost or fear they've lost loved ones, friends. There are people still sobbing uncontrollably. One man we spoke to who was looking for his brother, who the Syrian Solidarity Campaign have now confirmed died, Mohammed al-Hajali, 23-year-old who fled the Syrian civil war to come here to safety and died in the fire here.
All right, Ben, thank you very much. Thank you.
So Theresa May has ordered a full public inquiry into the West London Tower Block fire. The blackened hulk of what was once the home of more than 400 people stands witness to a monumental failure in the provision of safe public housing. This in a borough where property prices are the highest in the British Isles. For our first report tonight, our social affairs editor Jackie Long has been looking at the human cost of this fire in terms of lost lives, lost homes and lost loved ones.
The fire, which once looked like it might blaze forever, is out. The extent of the devastation it caused only beginning to emerge. From early morning, the fire service made clear they don't expect to find anyone else alive. These pictures from inside give some sense of why. Yet outside, below, families wait and wait. In the calm of a nearby park, Soysan Shiker relives the chaos of the past 36 hours. She last heard from her sister at 3 a.m. on the night of the fire. Her mother, brother-in-law, and 3 nieces are still missing.
I heard screaming, from the background, and, a lot of people screaming. Felt like I was hopeless, I couldn't do anything, Blankets we couldn't get through because we weren't allowed in, We couldn't do anything. Did you not see her? No.
Then last night, a confused call from someone to say her sister is okay. But she still hasn't heard from anyone in the family. Right now, she says,
Jenny,
she's choosing to believe they are still alive.
Can I'm hoping for the best. I'm really hoping for the best. But the way looking at that building,
it doesn't look good. But I'm hoping. You know, God works in miracles, so that's what I believe in.
And tell me a little bit about your family, about your sister, about the children.
Oh, lovely. I love them all. That's it. I just want to see them. You know, they're lovely people.
Outside St Mary's Hospital in Paddington, they also wait. This man for news of his 12-year-old daughter, Jessica Abana Romera. Jessica was making her way down from the 17th floor, talking to her father on the phone when the line went dead.
She phoned us at 1:20, and she was already 2 floors down by the building. And she said, come and get me, but we couldn't get in there. Because when I tried to, the firefighters were already in there, and they wouldn't allow me to go up.
But while waiting may be agonising, confirmation can be so very much worse. Today, the University of West London said 23-year-old civil engineering student Mohammed Al-Hajali was one of those who died at Grenfell Towers. A Syrian refugee, he came to Britain for safety and a better life.
He was on the phone for 2 hours with his friend. We managed to speak to his friend, and he told us they spoke for 2 hours on the phone. He was scared. He was hoping someone will come to rescue him. And at the end, he told him, okay, it is the end, because the fire reached my flat. And he said goodbye to his friend, and he told him to tell his mother and his father that he loved them. That was the last message.
And what do you think about the fact that he came for a better life, for safety, and this is how his life ended?
Many people from Syria flee the country and they die in the sea. He managed to get to Britain. He thought he is safe. We thought he is safe. But because of the neglecting, he died.
He is not alone in his anger. This is a personal tragedy for so many families, but is quickly becoming a political story too. Grenfell Towers, a high-rise block housing some of the poorest in one of the richest boroughs in one of the richest cities in the world. And there are many questions about how fire could have ravaged the council block so quickly. London Mayor Sadiq Khan met some of that anger head-on today.
It will never happen. We've seen nobody.
And as you'll see, understandably, the residents are very angry and concerned and have genuine questions that demand answers. And so, whereas
someone needs to be held accountable.
Well, of course,
these deaths could have been prevented.
The residents who said they'd seen nobody in authority today saw both the Prime Minister and the Labour leader, but in markedly different visits. These stills are the only record of Mrs May's visit to speak with the emergency services. She didn't meet residents. She later made this statement from Downing Street.
People want answers, and it's absolutely right. And that's why I am today ordering a full public inquiry into this disaster. We need to know what happened. We need to have an explanation of this. We owe that to the families, to the people who have lost loved ones, friends, and the homes in which they lived.
The Labour leader did meet some of those families and residents on his visit. He promised to continue to raise their concerns.
Hundreds of thousands of people in our country live in tower blocks, live in very high-rise tower blocks. Every single person who lives in a high-rise apartment today is going to be thinking, how safe am I?
Theresa May has promised an inquiry which will look at how this happened and why. But for many residents who warned for years that a tragedy of this scale was inevitable, there's a more fundamental question. Why were some of the borough's poorest residents left to live in unsafe housing with little power to do anything about it?
I am sure if there was an MP living in that building, or a politician or a high-profile individual or a celebrity, I am sure something would be done. If you look at the residents of this building, I saw the photos, they all seem to be migrants, refugees and poor people. This is the reality, and maybe that's why they were neglected.
New pictures tonight from inside Grenfell Towers, once home to hundreds of people. The death toll tonight stands at 17, and police warn that that will rise significantly. And they fear some people may never be identified.
So opposition politicians who began the day calling for a public inquiry had the demands met perhaps more quickly than they'd expected. Our political editor, Gary Gibbon, is with Gary, do we have any kind of idea what sort of inquiry this is? People here are going to want to know that it is truly independent.
Well, it's going to be judge-led. It's a full public inquiry. It's the sort of inquiry that you have when you have major tragedies like this with a lot of loss of life, like a train accident, that sort of thing. In the past, these things have sometimes gone on for years, and they don't always get set up fast. The government is saying it's going to set this one up as fast as it possibly can, although it will take several months. You could then see evidence sessions with people from the council, housing association, residents, of course, relatives, but you might also see ministers, past and present, because there's growing speculation that maybe governments of the past and the present have not done enough about building regulations, and that's going to be one of the things that around here you're hearing people talk about already.
Well, now, two very different visits today, Mr. Corbyn and Mrs. May.
Theresa May came without cameras trailing with her. She spoke to the emergency services here. There were a couple of snapshots of that, but she didn't speak to local residents. Jeremy Corbyn had a very different sort of visit. I think there was a feeling around number 10 that people wouldn't want lots of cameras trailing around her. It might get in the way of things. But when you're starting up a new government and you face a major moment like this, it's not just about effectiveness and doing the right thing. It's about the tone, you said. And I think an awful lot of people are looking at this moment and wondering whether she maybe should have spoken to people, taken the risk of going in and maybe getting heckled a bit, but going in and talking to people here and maybe learning firsthand just how upset they are. One other thing the government's done to try and set the tone correctly, the Chancellor has pulled out of the Mansion House speech he was due to give this evening. So's the Governor of the Bank of England. The whole thing's been cancelled. The feeling was people all dressed up, eating fine dinners, the wrong tone for the evening.
Gary Gibbon, all sorts of people have been moved to come and help those who have lost their homes and much more in this fire. Some have been celebrities, including Adele and Rita Ora, and I am going to be joined now by the singer Lily Allen. She lives in this area and is well known amongst the local community and knows a fair amount about the background to this whole issue. Lily Allen, what's your sense of what a public inquiry should be looking at?
Well, I think that there needs to be questions answered about fire regulations and why, a bill that was meant to be passed was voted against by 312 Tory Conservative MPs, 80 of which I hear are landlords. There has to be a conflict of interest there, and that needs to be investigated. I think...
You think basically the property involvement of MPs, particularly Conservative MPs, affects their judgment on what should be done?
Oh, I don't want to get myself into a libelous situation, but no. I mean, to me, that's what's being said here on the ground. I think there's a lot of anger here towards the council, how they've dealt with people's concerns building up to this event, and how they've dealt with things after the event as well.
A lot of the people I've spoken to draw attention to the reality that this is the richest borough in Britain, possibly in the world. After all, you have Chelsea down there, and you have clearly Kensington, North Kensington here.
Holland Park. I mean, they're some of the most expensive properties on planet Earth.
But you live here. Do you sense that there is any attempt at all to bind these two societies together?
No, not really. I think that actually the council tends to try and drive people apart slightly here. I think, so many community centres have been closed down, pubs have been closed down and made into, posh gastro pubs and housing for rich people. People are encouraged not to congregate and discuss what's happening in this area. They're not encouraged to have a community spirit, but look what happens when something like this happens. They know that the council don't care about them, that it's them that's going to care for themselves.
I think one of the things that any outsider like me coming in finds is that the community is actually immensely strong and extraordinarily bound together, despite...
Yeah. And we have an amazing event here at the end of every August, Notting Hill Carnival, and the Conservatives are doing everything in their power to try and shut it down or to try and privatise it and try and charge people. Well, it's constant.
But then on the other hand, I suppose people looking at it may say, well, she's probably pretty well off. I guess she lives in a nice house and all the rest of it.
I do now, because I've had a lot of money, but I didn't used to when I grew up around here.
Really? So how would you see it might be possible to bring a little more reality into these people's lives, particularly in Chelsea?
Well, I think, first of all, if we're talking about reality into these people's lives, I think that what people would really like is a more honest count of how many people have actually died in this event, how many people have been killed. And, you know, I think that the humanitarian effort on the ground here, the volunteering, which is being led by community leaders and volunteers, it's not being led by the council. It's being run by the people of this community. And it is chaotic. They don't have any experience with it. And I think that it's actually playing into the hands of the government, because once these people's hope turns to anger, they've got a real problem on their hands. And that is what I feel like the government are trying to micromanage people's grieving here. That's what's happening. I've never in my entire life seen an event like this where the death count has been downplayed by the mainstream media. 17, I'm sorry, but I'm hearing from people that the figure is much closer to 150, and that many of those people are children.
In thanking you, I'm bound to say that the difficulty is that
those are off-the-record numbers that I've been given from policemen and from firemen.
I'm also aware of it, and I actually said at the beginning of the programme that the death toll is likely to mount very considerably.
So why is that not coming out now? I don't understand.
The difficulty is that they have to identify bodies, and there can be very little left in this building, and that's the difficulty.
I appreciate that, but these are families, and when you have to identify a body, you report it to the next of kin. There are no next of kin.
Lily Allen, thank you very, very much for coming in. Well, now I'm joined by Abdulaziz Al-Mashi, who is a friend of Mohammed Al-Haj Ali, a Syrian refugee who died in the fire. Matilda Glossop is a community organiser from the Harrow Centre, where she's been organising donations and supporting young people affected by the fire, and Piers Thompson, who has been involved in local housing campaigning, particularly in this Silchester area of this particular part of London. Let me just ask you first about the cladding and about the other issues that have been raised in the report we've just done tonight. Presumably, how this refurbishment went is an absolute cardinal element of what you want to know from this public inquiry, which Mrs May has announced today.
Obviously, it's great that there is going to be a public inquiry, and we will finally find out what went wrong at Grenfell Tower. On the other hand, the public inquiry can take 5 years, which seems an awful long time to get any form of justice for what appear to be many victims up there.
But it also raises preventative questions. I mean, surely there's action that you presumably would want taken about the other towers and the other low-level housing here too, which is done in exactly the same way.
Well, the cladding looks like it was a mistake. When that was a concrete, brutalist, modernist block made out of concrete, a fire in one flat probably would only have spread to 2 or 3 other flats. You've seen it all over London, a little burnt out bit in the corner. Whereas this cladding seems to have acted as an accelerant, and as such heated the whole building up to the extent that it ran out of control. And we, people here, we all have friends all over London, in Camden, in Peckham, all over London, who live in these clad flats, which are put up, as far as I can see, as a vanity project. Right. You know, the council didn't like the look of it.
That is something this public inquiry really has to come up with, among many other things. But Abdulaziz Al-Mashi, you're now convinced that your friend didn't survive.
Yes.
Is that right? Do you have any...
Yes, we have identified his body.
You've identified his body?
Yes, we have. His cousin went to the police. They showed him a video and a photo of him. Obviously, we know him because we saw his photo on the social media. When we saw that, we sent his cousin down to the police station, and they showed him a video and a photo of the body, and it has been identified.
Now, he came here as a refugee, and I think he was actually on the phone to Syria as he was being besieged by the flames.
Yes, when the fire happened and they noticed there was a fire, they are 3 brothers live in the flat on the 14th floor. Then they tried to come down. One of them was already down. The other 2 wanted to leave the flat. They went down on the stairs. It was so dark and the smoke was so thick, so they lost each other. Omar, the oldest, he managed to go down and eventually he was evacuated by the emergency services. Muhammad, he couldn't breathe. Then he went back to his flat. He shut the door. And then he tried to call his parents back in Syria. He couldn't get connection. And then he was speaking to his friend back in Syria for 2 hours. He was terrified. He was scared. He told him, okay, have a hope. Hopefully, we are in London. The emergency services will come and rescue me. But at the end of the day, I told him, look, the fire reached me now. I'm going to die. Goodbye, and tell my mom and my dad I love them.
I'm so sorry.
That was his final words.
Matilda, you are now working with the children, and I'm wondering what sense you get from how they're coping with this, because amazingly children can be very resilient in this situation.
Yeah, we're working at the local youth and community centre, and it's amazing how the community have pulled together. The community have really pulled together on this. They've done a lot of stuff, a lot of donating, a lot of supporting the young people. A lot of young people are at our club, not really knowing what to do to help. And we're going to have a lot of work in the coming weeks supporting the young people of the local area in how to get over this kind of trauma.
People have been very generous in providing toys.
Extremely generous, yeah.
So you've got enough equipment and everything like that?
We're not taking any more donations at the moment. We are taking up, we're taking cash donations on the Harrow Club GoFundMe page, but we are desperately looking for storage to store donations that have been taken in.
Well, I want to thank you for coming, and I want you to thank you too, but above all, thank you for your courage and sharing with us what happened to Mohammed Hajjaj, and I'm sure everyone will want to remember him and be grateful to you for telling us about him. Thank you very much indeed. Welcome back to Kensington, where the grief and the anger are still very present. Within the last hour, local residents have been holding a vigil to remember those who died in the Grenfell Tower fire. Our correspondent, Kemi Nzeram, is just around the corner from here at a wall where people have been posting messages of condolence and memorial. Kemi.
That's right, John. This tribute wall is now filled with literally hundreds of messages, and they range from the poignant to the political. And I'll read you just a couple. You'll never be forgotten is one, and then lives lost for neglect. You're right, people are angry. They want answers, and understandably so. The mood is somewhat sombre as the grim reality of what took place here starts to sink in. But amid that, there are moments of solidarity, and just up the road from here, we just went to a vigil for a particular girl, one name, Jessica Urbano, just 12 years old when she was last seen on the 21st floor of Grenfell Tower. Her family came together, printed T-shirts, gathered with neighbours, with friends, her own age, older relatives, school teachers, to remember the girl that they last saw on Grenfell Tower. One of the names that people have come down in their droves to pay their respects to remember in the hope that somehow they will be found. Names that are paid tribute to at this wall, and as you can see, there's flowers laid down at the foot of the wall, and people coming every moment, every hour to write their message to the people that they want to remember.
Kemi and Sarah. After the break, we've been hearing the anger of local residents, those who feel they've been neglected by government, local councillors and housing bosses for far, far too long.
Brexit! 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 Brexit!
Sound familiar? What with Brexit, fake news and the election campaign, it sometimes feels like the country's falling apart. Well, don't panic, because the solution is right here. Britstick, sticking the nation back together. Quite literally. Brexiteers and Ramoners. Easy. Young and old, no problem. Second-generation immigrants and, well, 22nd generation immigrants, walloped. Britstick. Sticking Britain back together.
2 nights bringing the nation back together. Channel 4's Reunited Kingdom with a last leg special tomorrow night at 9.
Welcome back to Kensington in West London. You can't ever lose the sense of this terrible wreckage behind me. We're still trying to come to terms with the fire that destroyed that tower yesterday. And for those who live in this area, it is harder still. Many new people from the block or were witnesses to the awful events. Now this area is known for its diversity, both ethnic and social, black, white, Asian, the rich, the poor, even the famous. I've been hearing the stories of some of them, and the anger of many here was palpable.
This symbolises the divide between the rich and poor in this area.
Yeah, because they don't care. You're working
The council is busy selling off our libraries. They've sold Ladbroke Grove Library to Notting Hill Prep, another private school.
Have you seen the difference between Chelsea? You come down here, it's the same borough. It's the same borough, but the divide is ridiculous. They don't care.
There's a great deal of anger around here. Is that because you feel really absolutely neglected over these?
People had to stand there and watch friends and family die.
Why? 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 No! Well, no! Why walk away?
There are more than 100 people who died in this place.
Yeah, I understand that.
Not 10 or 15 people.
But why didn't they come here before?
Because
why did they not come here
more than 100 persons died.
Someone needs to be held accountable. The council, Theresa May, and the councillor who was responsible for ensuring that safety was in the blocks.
Find the money to get sprinkler systems put into each and every housing block across the UK. It's not good enough that they're put into the city and the rich people and the more well-off people's tower blocks. We need them in every single tower block in the UK, and we need them to start today. We don't need to wait for investigations. It's absolutely obvious. Common sense will tell you what we need.
Look how long it took for the Miss May to come out. Miss May to come out and say, "Oh, I'm sorry."
She hasn't even come yet. She came early.
She came early.
And she spoke to everyone.
But look how long it took. Look how long it took. Come out and beat the people. Don't be behind closed doors.
It's a symbol of austerity. It's simple. It is what it is.
People like us that are here, we are the community. They're not talking to us. Where are they?
Thank you. The anger is met in part by the bustle of volunteers, boxing up clothes, bedding, food, now far more than the known survivors can handle. And then 2 days on, there are still the bereaved, fearing the worst. A dear friend still missing. It seems that people who were ill and infirm were put on high floors.
Yeah. The lady that we know, she had blood clots and she had a stroke recently, and she's got a problem with her legs.
How old was she?
She's 70.
Yeah.
But she was still put in a 23rd floor.
Yeah. And she's a friend of yours?
Yeah, she's a friend of mine.
When did you last see her?
On Monday. Monday night.
And how are you sure that she's not with us
Because
anymore?
we saw them in a video.
We saw them in the video. We came here.
They went up to the roof. There were the people that went up
on the roof.
Yeah, they went up to the roof. We saw them in a video.
And they were still alive?
Yeah.
How do you know that they weren't?
They were talking on the video.
Really?
Yeah.
On their phone?
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
But what would you tell Mrs. May if you had that? She came here today, but she didn't speak.
That
to
doesn't
anyone.
mean anything.
It doesn't mean anything.
No.
Nothing.
Yeah.
She came,
but do you want all these towers made fireproof, or do you want them brought down?
Brought down. They're like pigeonholes. People shouldn't live in pigeonholes.
But you still want to live in this area?
Obviously.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they're like pigeonholes. You can't put human beings in pigeonholes. It's not fair. Just because you can't afford something, that doesn't mean that you have to be dumped in somewhere like that.
What do you want?
We don't want human beings to live in buildings like that.
Joining me now is Ishmael Blagrove, writer and long-time resident of the area, and Daisy May Hudson, who's campaigned for better housing since she and her family were made homeless themselves. Ishmael Blagrove, how would you find it, as a writer, possible to sum up what the community is saying, how they are, how they're responding to each other?
Well, I'd say there are a lot of people going through different types of emotions at the moment. There are many who are sort of very anxious to sort of find loved ones, those who are missing. There are those who are frustrated. Anger also sort of sums up a portion of the people in this community who are frustrated that, you know, these were forecasted. Many people have done reports and have challenged the local authorities to address some of the health and safety and fire risks to some of these estates. And I would say that it's not just Grenfell Tower. Local residents have had concerns about what's going on in Warnington, in terms of Silchester, where we are right now. We've had this word regeneration, which has been nothing but a euphemism for really sort of ethnic and class cleansing in this community, and people feel that their voice has not been heard.
And I mean, the whole question of housing, one's bound to come here and say, look, this is unique, this is something uniquely dreadful, it couldn't happen anywhere else. Wrong, right?
So, well, very wrong. I mean, it's so tragic that we've had to get to this point, and you know, lives are lost, and you look behind and that's really, human beings have now become the collateral of a housing system that puts profit over people to this kind of degree. But I mean, across London, estates where there are people's homes are earmarked for redevelopment, and they're considered brownfield land for development, but there are people's homes on that, and that's local authorities selling off council housing for profits, and it's really, really disgusting and makes me really full of rage.
But there can't be much confidence in the community that anything much is going to change. I mean, clearly there is worry about immediately how everybody's going to be rehoused.
Not when we have a culture of corruption that's penetrated right throughout this local council.
Everywhere I go, people talk about corruption, but can you really identify?
Well, I mean, certainly when you look at this area, we've talked about sort of the sort of changes that's going on, not just in this area, but around the country. But it's been much more mercenary here. We're talking about the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea, where everything sort of boils down to real estate and its value. I had one reporter talk to me there about, oh, you know, well, what about the real estate value? I'm like, you know, people have died in the building, and you're summarising this as real estate value and that's value. That's one of the challenges and problems whereby people have put profit over people. That's one of the real issues that's sort of summarised from history and culture of and a period of austerity that we're allegedly going through. In this borough, when we talk about austerity, there are people who are really going through real challenges across the country. But in this borough in particular, it hasn't been noticeable, or it has been notable amongst those sort of poor working class residents. But we see Bugattis, we see Ferraris, we see the trappings of wealth, we see those who are not feeling the austerity, who are actually celebrating this period of...
Are you in a sense almost saying these two communities cannot live cheek by jowl?
No, I'm saying that they can live cheek by jowl, but the culture that has been, the culture of greed, selfishness, of narcissism that's been promoted across this country for the last couple of decades has to change. We have to sort of develop, a system whereby people can live together, whereby those who are much more fortunate will sort of pay to sort of subsidise and those who are less fortunate.
Homes now have been commodified, so now the people that earn the most money get to choose where they live, what happens to those areas of land. You know, this tragic incident happened because there was a complete negligence on so many levels, where costs were cut by the cladding that was put on the outside. People complained that it wasn't fit for them to live, and there were concerns about fire safety. If that was in any other, you know, housing block, an office block, there would be escape routes. The building would have burned up in that way.
But let's go one step further. Do you mean they spent £10 million on the exterior of this building, yet didn't think about the sprinkler system or adequate sort of fire alarms for the house?
That is possibly the most shocking thing of all in that building. Tonight's main news, the Prime Minister has ordered a full public inquiry into the West London Tower block fire. This, as first pictures emerged from inside the burnt-out building. The emergency services say they have identified 6 of those killed and are aware of another 11 inside, but do not know how many more people are still missing.
It may be weeks before we know just how many people died in that terrible tower block fire in West London, and the police said as much today. But the officer leading the investigation said he could not rule out the number reaching 3 figures. So it was perhaps no surprise to hear that anger was building in the area today. How can it be that in one of the richest countries in the world in 2017, people can be living in a building that appears to have been so frankly dangerous? It is a question that is, of course, being asked most urgently by all those who are preparing to go to sleep tonight in similar buildings all over the country. On another sobering day, here are the main developments. The official death toll has reached 17, although, as we said, police and firefighters expect that number to rise significantly. 30 people are still being treated in hospital for smoke inhalation and other injuries. The Prime Minister announced a public inquiry, but immediately faced demands for faster answers and indeed actions. Councils in London and elsewhere announced fire safety checks on existing tower blocks, and the Queen issued a message of sympathy and paid tribute to the bravery of firefighters and volunteers.
There are no flames now, just a charred shell that was once home to so many families and still holds an unknown number of their bodies. Fire crews believe in flats not yet safe to enter, there are whole families who couldn't get out. In stairwells and on the roof, it's feared many met their end, though it could yet take weeks to confirm their fate.
It's the upper floors that will be more challenging and will need some additional shoring for us to be able to get in there. The size of this building, it could take weeks. I want to be realistic, this is a very long process.
These images show the destruction on the ground floor of Grenfell Tower. This is the area least affected by that all-consuming fire. As this photograph shows, it gets worse as you go up. Very few escape the higher floors. The first victim officially named is Mohammed Al-Haj Ali, a 23-year-old refugee from Syria who died desperately trying to call his family back home.
He was knowing like he's gonna die. There is no choice like of saving him. So that's why he was trying to just call his family. Yeah, but he couldn't even call his family just to say goodbye. Then he called one of his friends and he said, please tell my family that I love them.
If the initial response to this tragedy was horror, as the hours have passed, there have been mounting questions and mounting anger.
There is a system in place. That is the product. That is it.
They give us nothing at all.
All the resources.
Yeah, but they're lying.
Labour's leader visiting the area heard the concerns of residents who say fears they'd expressed about the tower's safety were ignored.
Someone has to be held accountable. Someone has to be held responsible. We do not want this kicked into the long grass. We do not want the government to sort of hide this with some hollow platitude that lessons will be learned.
We have to get to the bottom of this. The truth has got to come out, and it will.
Good man.
The Prime Minister paid her own private visit to Grenfell Tower this morning and was criticised for meeting only the emergency teams and not the local community.
People are very angry, people are crying, people are lost, missing. And she's the Prime Minister, where is she? Even when she came, she didn't talk to anybody from the community.
Right now, people want answers, and it's absolutely right. And that's why I am today ordering a full public inquiry into this disaster. We need to know what happened. We need to have an explanation of this. We owe that to the families, to the people who have lost loved ones, friends, and the homes in which they lived.
An all-party meeting of MPs heard more demands for answers.
This is a man-made disaster, and we look to you both as ministers to leave no stone unturned in getting justice and getting to the bottom of this.
We completely understand the shock, the concern, the anger, the frustration, the fear. We have to act and think as if it was our friends, our family, in that boat.
It will never happen.
London's mayor visiting the scene walked into the growing anger and said he understood it.
You can see the anger from the community, justifiably so, because many members of the community have been saying...
Not just the community, it's everyone outside as well.
Fed up with these politicians, no handshakes. We want action, not handshakes.
Sadiq Khan said the inquiry should be immediate and that no one should have to wait 2 years to find out why this happened. Paul Davis, News at 10.
So we still don't know how many names will appear on the final roll call of those who died, and families of the missing are hoping, of course, their loved ones never will. But the list of those who haven't been heard from is very sadly growing. Among them is an Italian couple living on the 23rd floor. Gloria Trevisan, an architect, and her partner, Marco Gottardi, had only recently moved in. They spoke to their relatives at around 4 in the morning, the last anyone heard from them. Just a few floors below were 24-year-old photographer Khadija Say and her mother, Mary. Neither have been heard of since Wednesday morning's fire. 1 floor below were Amaya Taku, her mother, Amal Ahmadin, and aunt Amna Abdul Karim, all missing. Lower down, the stories are the same. 84-year-old Sheila Smith was living on the 16th floor. A couple of floors below her, Zainab Dean was living with her 2-year-old son. She told her brother that she was staying there as she had been instructed. On the 11th floor, Ali Yawar Jafari is also amongst the missing. He was escaping in the lift with his wife and daughter when the doors opened 1 floor below. He got out, and his family has not heard from him since. And as that list continues to grow, one place is becoming the centrepiece of appeals for information.
There are some white plastic boards which have been put up on a brick wall on the side of a community centre near Grenfell Tower. And on them are the names of those still missing. There are many names here, and whether you knew these faces or not, it's a difficult place to be. There's a message here for the Cowchair family, and there are lots of them still missing.
It's all my mum, my sister and her daughters and her husband.
Sorsan doesn't know what's happened to 6 members of her family, including her sister and 3 children, who she last spoke to as they were trying to escape.
If any of you see this message, please phone us. Anyone.
And not by a long stretch are they the only ones with multiple family members missing.
We can see the 17th floor and what state it's in now, you know. And
Rahima Cannon was talking to her aunt and uncle, her brother and cousins, all on the 17th floor.
My younger brother Hanif, he phoned me and he was asking, you know, I've not always listened to you, you know, little bit of spats that brothers and sisters have, forgive me, you know, look after your mum, look after your niece, you know, be strong, you know, we're going to be fine, nothing's going to happen to us. But I knew then he's got a very wise head on his shoulders. I knew then that, you know, this could be the last time I speak to them. I asked him to put me on speakerphone. I bid farewell to my aunt and uncle, and I could hear them reciting the Quran. They're very religious people, and the phone just went dead.
Rahima told us she doesn't know if she's got the strength to wait for confirmation of her family's fate. In Grenfell Road, the street after which the tower was named, we saw this taxi. On it a handwritten note, "My car, I'm missing, Mohammed Nida." Mr. Nida parked his taxi here on Tuesday night before going to his flat, number 205.
We're still keeping our minds open. I mean, reality is reality standing in front of us, but perhaps he's unconscious somewhere, perhaps in a hospital or something, so they could just let us know.
You just said the reality is standing in front of you. You clearly do fear the worst for your uncle.
We do fear, yes. Yeah.
But you've got to have a little bit of hope.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And you'll keep that going.
Yeah, we'll try that.
His uncle's driver's ID card is hanging on the dashboard where he left it, if that hope comes through. And hope is all many families have left. Isaac Shower is just 5. His father had Isaac and his younger brother with him. In the chaos of what happened next, they were separated.
There was smoke, so it was very hard to see when they evacuated from the 18th floor. And I think the father had both of the children, and it was quite hard for him to hold on to both of them.
When schools broke up today, children left messages at the wall, messages for the friends they haven't seen since Tuesday, and like so many here, fear they won't see again. Chris Ship, News at 10.
For the most part, what happened on Wednesday has been a source of unremitting sadness. For example, 12-year-old Jessica Urbano has not been seen by anyone since she was on the 20th floor of the building. Her family is understandably frantic with worry. But for the relatives of another missing 12-year-old girl, there has been a positive outcome. Lulia Benim suffered a smoke inhalation and is in hospital. She is, though, very much alive.
2 parents caught up in this disaster. Both from the Grenfell Tower, both with 12-year-old girls. One is safe, the other's missing. Jessica Urbano hasn't been seen since she tried to escape from the 20th floor. Her mother was at work, her father was with a friend down on the 3rd floor.
So we're hoping that
she's in some hospital. So we're appealing for people that have seen her to please, contact us.
So you were talking on the phone as she was coming downstairs, and what was she saying to you?
No, she said, come and get me, but we couldn't get in there. Because when I was on the third floor seeing a friend of mine, I went straight to go upstairs. The firefighters were already in there, and they wouldn't allow me to go up.
Having printed the posters, put out appeals on social media, they're now searching the hospitals, but without success.
They just give us the hotline number, but there's nothing concrete at the moment. They said they keep updating the list, and that's all we can do.
12-year-old Lulia Beniam was stuck on the 21st floor with her mother, Helen, until her cousin says she urged them to leave.
Helen, I said, what's happening? She said, I don't know what's happening. Please pray for us. I said, what are you doing in your house? She said to me, we were told to wait indoors. I said, listen, people are jumping out of the window. You need to get out of the house.
Mother and daughter were separated on the smoke-filled stairs, but today they found Lulia in hospital.
They said that she's really, not able to receive the visitors. So we had to meet Helen outside.
But she's alive?
Yes, she's alive.
Tonight, prayers were said for Jessica, who's still missing. Romero Urbano and his family refusing to give up hope that their child might somehow miraculously have survived. Supported by friends through these darkest of times.
Well, Juliet is live for us at St Mary's Hospital in Paddington tonight. Juliet, perhaps you could just bring us up to date on the number of people still being treated in hospitals.
Yes, it's not just St Mary's, of course. There are 30 people at 5 different hospitals across London, and we're told tonight that 15 of them remain in critical care. Perhaps not surprisingly, a lot of them are suffering from the severe effects of inhaling that thick, black, acrid smoke. That's what happened to Lulia, the girl whose parents found her here in the hospital today. She had to make her way down 21 stories through the staircase, inhaling that smoke, and apparently they say that they think she will make a full recovery, but of course at the moment she's still very poorly. And I'm afraid she's not the only children, we understand, who are here at St Mary's in a very serious condition. Another case of 2 sisters who we are told are just 6 and 8 years old, Tasmin and Malek Belkadi. Apparently a relative came here and identified them yesterday. He says that one of the little girls is in a coma, and that until he found them, staff here at the hospital didn't even know that they were related. Unfortunately, their mother and their father and their 6-month-old sister are all still missing. Now, the truth is, we simply don't know how many people have been named or reunited, but I think you get that terrible gut feeling that we are just going to hear more of these heartbreaking stories.
Okay, Juliet, for now, thank you very much indeed.
Shock, grief, despair. And now anger. To all those of us who've not experienced the trauma that the residents and families of Grenfell Tower are suffering, their loss is unimaginable, but we sense their rising anger that they were dealt a dreadful hand. They lived in a building which was quite simply not safe. Repeated pleas by residents and warnings that something awful would happen went unanswered. The burning building, now charred against the night sky, may come to symbolise the moment when there was a shift in society and perhaps in politics too. There are so many who've lost loved ones and seen things no one should ever see, others who've survived with life-changing injuries, and many who still await news. Let's get a sense of the mood on the ground tonight. Joining us from West London is Derek Wilson, pastor at the Christian Centre Trust Tabernacle, who's helped with the relief effort. Good evening, Derek Wilson. Tonight, of course, so many people are still missing their loved ones. Who is helping them tonight?
I think what's really beginning to happen, what I'm sensing in the community, is that reality is beginning to set in, that really there are no more survivors. And at this time, there's a lot of frustration, a lot of anger, obviously, of what has happened that could have been prevented.
And obviously then, as you're saying, the dawning realisation for many, many people that they will have lost members of their family, and an eagerness to find some information out that we seem to be getting very, very slowly.
Could you say that again, please?
The information seems to be coming very slowly about the extent of the deaths.
Well, absolutely. It is shocking, and what's really more shocking is that this industry report that was released 2 years ago and was the council was notified, it could have been prevented, and it just fell on deaf ears, and that's why you're getting the frustration and the anger at this time in the community.
Do you think enough is being done by the council? I know there's so many different voluntary organisations, so many emergency centres that have set up. Your own church is one, of course. Is enough being done by the council?
Well, this is what that's what needs to be answered, really. There's some tough questions and some tough answers in this inquiry that needs to come out.
But tonight, but what I mean, Pastor, tonight is, do you get a sense there's enough council workers on the ground helping, or is it all volunteers? Do you sense that the council actually is in control of the situation?
Well, now there is, yes, because where we have our church, the food and the clothing are beginning to shift at this time. And so by tomorrow, I believe everything should be moved out of the buildings to a central place where those who need it can get access to it.
Tell me, are all the residents that have been saved from the tower, are all the residents being housed locally? Are they being looked after locally?
They're still in temporary accommodation, as in the Westway, there are in the indoor tennis court. There's still a good number of them that are still there temporarily. They need to be housed as soon as possible.
Thank you very much indeed, Pastor. Well, throughout the day, our reporter Katie Razzle has been in the shadow of Grenfell Tower, speaking to people who lost loved ones and others whose friends and family members are still unaccounted for, and also getting a feel for the solidarity and compassion all around the tower.
Yesterday, about afternoon, we were accommodated. That's where I live, 571.
Until the early hours of Wednesday morning, Sajjad Jamal Vatan lived in Grenfell Tower. Now his home is a hotel. He's haunted by what he saw that night, and the neighbours he believes just can't have survived.
I know for a fact they died because they are missing yet, and I'm sure inside the building, and being in the building for this many hours, of course you're not alive.
Sajjad showed me his videos of the fire.
This was when I found my mom, and at the same time, you know, I think I found my mom 1:30, 15 minutes after.
By then it's really on fire.
This is the flat that I live in, and it's completely on fire.
He was leaving the cinema with his sister when his mother called from home to say their block was ablaze. He found her after an agonising wait.
So I tried to go inside the building to save my mom, and I saw a firefighter going at the same time with me. He tapped on my shoulder, he stopped me, said, "There are only people who can come out, nobody is allowed in." So, and then I was like, my mom is there. And I ran, and the first person I saw was my mom, and I was so happy. But happiness just lasted for 10-20 seconds. Many people were on their phones talking live to their kids, wife, you know. And one of them were Iranian. He was talking us, telling his wife what to do. We told him, get her a wet towel, tell her to get a wet towel, put on her mouth and her daughter's mouth, and get on the floor to avoid the gas, you know, to avoid the explosion.
Did they get out, do you think?
No.
Newsnight understands from a firefighter who went inside the building that they knew after 11 o'clock yesterday morning they would be unlikely to find any more survivors. It was the worst they'd seen in all their years of firefighting. A block of around 600 inhabitants from diverse backgrounds still smoking today.
More than 50% of them were Muslims, from Morocco, Turkey, Iran, from Somalia. There were English people, black Muslims.
So what do we know of who lived in Grenfell Tower? Iranian-born Sajjad lived with his family in flat 10 on the 3rd floor, just a floor below where the fire is believed to have started. Other survivors include, on the 9th story, the Moroccan Chebiouni family of 4, who fled when Saleh Chebiouni smelt smoke and woke up to see flames outside. And from the 11th floor, Mouna El-Ogbani, who escaped with her husband and 3 children when a friend called to tell her of the fire. It's the poor souls who are missing or dead who keep Sajjad awake at night.
I just can't close my eyes when I know people just, died in front of me.
Because you saw it, did you?
Yeah, I saw it. I saw people jumping out from the building, not one, not two, many. Couldn't avoid looking at them.
Yesterday we heard of a family on the 21st floor, 20-year-old Yassin Wahabi and his parents, brother and sister. Relatives told Newsnight there were rumours on social media the family is dead. Officially, they're still missing. This from a friend today.
It breaks my heart because the thing is, social media is going out there saying that he's confirmed this, he's confirmed that, and that's not the case. And those messages are going to his family and friends, and it's distorting everything. No one in that tower has been confirmed.
On the 14th floor lived Syrian brothers. University student Mohammed Al-Hajj Ali was overwhelmed by smoke and returned to their flat while his brother escaped. Friends have confirmed he perished after a long phone call home to a friend in Syria.
For 2 hours he was on the phone. He was absolutely terrified, he was scared, but he had a hope the emergency services will get to him and rescue him. 2 hours later he told them, okay, it is over, the fire has reached me now and I'm gonna die. Goodbye, tell my mom and my father I love them. And that was the last message from him.
The names and faces of the missing residents of the tower give a snapshot into a diverse and tight-knit community. 79-year-old Ligaya Moore from the Philippines, Mo Tuku, originally from Eritrea, who was about to win an award for his work as a security guard. Italians Marco and Gloria, who moved into the 23rd floor of the tower just 3 months ago. And 5-year-old Isaac Shawa, who was lost in the chaos of the evacuation. This is a community anxiously waiting for news of loved ones and friends. They were warned today the police fear they may never identify all of those who've been killed.
Katie Razzo, well, this has gone beyond a local tragedy and become an event that's touched people across the whole country. And along with that, spotlight has come intense scrutiny of whether politicians at a national level have done enough in the past or are doing enough for the future. But it was also the tone of the response that drew attention. As we see here, Theresa May was pictured meeting the leaders of the London Fire Service, while Jeremy Corbyn was filmed mingling with local people. Our political editor, Nick Watt, is here. How is that political response being judged?
Well, there is alarm amongst Conservative MPs that those rather stilted pictures of the Prime Minister could provide a defining image of her premiership. One Tory MP said to me, the Prime Minister is behaving as the Prime Minister behaved in the election. Her limitations are now there for everybody to see. Now, I have to say that in my experience, when Theresa May visits the scene of a tragedy, she always goes out of her way to ensure that she is not a burden on the emergency services. So this today was a private visit. There were no cameras in tow, and there were limited discussions with the emergency service leaders and, crucially, volunteer leaders, but there was no meeting with the residents. And as I understand it, the Prime Minister wanted to hear directly on the ground what had happened before deciding what to do. And she had been told that the fire had spread in a, quote, strange, unpredictable and volatile way. And when she heard that, she said there are huge questions to be answered, and so later on she announced that there would be a judge-led public inquiry, and she says that will report promptly.
Nick, thank you very much.